All right, that connects directly, of course, to the offensive line and the continued mixing and matching. And how close are we there? Steve, we can start with you.
Talk about the offensive line or the defensive line? I
The
didn't catch
offensive
that.
line.
The offensive line, I think it's pretty well set. I think they're going to go Josh Simmons at left tackle, Donovan Jackson left guard, Carson Hinsman, it sounds like, has the edge over Victor Cutler at center. Then Matthew Jones, the incumbent at right guard, and Josh Fryer at right tackle. Although Coach then said that the freshman Luke Montgomery is going to play some snaps, whether he cuts into Josh Fryer at right tackle remains to be seen. Tegra Toshbola will probably also get to play some at tackle, depending which side. Zen Mahalski may get to play as well. And then Enoch Vamahi sounds like the next guard off the board. So to me, there's your top 7, 8, 9 that have kind of identified themselves. And what appeared to be a position that was in flux is perhaps not quite as bad as it was cracked up to be coming into the start of preseason camp. It is pretty telling that your top 3 tackles are a guy that started one season at San Diego State, a journeyman somewhat in Josh Fryer, although that's probably not even the right word. Just a guy who's bided his time, third-year player, Josh Fryer, and not your prototypical left tackle, I wouldn't think, Josh Fryer, depending on what we've seen, the blue chippers that have come through there. And then a true freshman, Luke Montgomery. And then a redshirt freshman, Tegra Toshbola. Jobs come open for a reason, don't they, guys? And that's kind of typified with, why that change was made to Justin Fry a year ago.
Yeah, it's just kind of how it works out. Sorry, I had to take mine off of mute. I've got a crazy dog running around here at various points. But yeah, I felt going into the offseason and everything else that we should probably be talking more about the offensive line than the quarterback situation, only to have this delay in a starting quarterback being named. But it does seem like things have kind of sorted themselves out. I'll be interested to see if Carson Hinsman is able to hold off Vic Cutler even as the year kind of goes on, as you generally don't bring in a transfer portal person just to sit them per se. So I think by all accounts, Carson Hinsman has had a tremendous offseason and has really gone out and kind of won the job. It's not a default thing, but I think as Vic Cutler feels more comfortable within the Ohio State system and everything else, I mean, let's not forget it's a very different world between ULM and OSU. So there was a certain amount of acclamation for Cutler. So that one could continue on. I think the biggest thing is just having continuity, because offensive line is certainly a situation of where you want all 5 guys to act as one. You want them to act as a unit. So moving guys in and out constantly does not equal what you want there. So once you kind of get to that point, you want to run with it. Josh, no Jimmy, no Josh Simmons, certainly out at the one tackle position. We're being told the right things. We're certainly being told that he has been a very pleasant surprise and has been, very, very competitive and very strong at his position. I think we've always felt that Josh Fryer was somebody that was going to step well into his role. I think that, as Steve had mentioned, the Luke Montgomery news about they're going to have to find a way to get him some playing time and everything else bodes really well for that. Is that going to be with the 41 jersey as the extra offensive lineman, as the tight end, as the eligible tight end with that type of number? I mean, I'll be interested to see what kind of comes out of that. But I think Ohio State's going to have 3 weeks to kind of figure everything out before Notre Dame sits there and awaits them in week 4.
Yeah, everything that we've heard from the coaches and the offensive line themselves, everything is super positive, and everybody, the confidence, the change in confidence from talking to Ryan Day after the spring to talking to him in fall camp is night and day in terms of how he feels about things. But I still think it's important to remember that Ohio State went and now is starting the former San Diego State right tackle, who never played left tackle, as their left tackle. So, like, if you just say those words and put them in a sentence, you're like, boy, this is a bad situation. This is not a good situation to be in. And so I think that's a real thing. Now, they've been really impressed by everything he's doing, so that's good. He's very athletic, and so that's great. And I think perhaps the positive spin on this is you bring in somebody from San Diego State, you bring in somebody from Louisiana Monroe, you bring them to Ohio State, and the world is opened up to them in terms of reaching their potential. When we talked to Vic Cutler last week or the week before, he said he didn't even realize all of the things that are available to him at Ohio State until after spring ball. Basically, like if you just need another smoothie or a protein shake, somebody will get it for you. Anything that you need, you don't even have to really get out of your chair. You just look over and say, "Hey, I need this," and they'll go get it for you. Just stuff like that. All of the different things that are available to you. Josh Simmons is understanding and realizing a lot of that as well. Ryan Day told a story where after practice, he walked by Josh Simmons and he said, "Josh, this is just like San Diego State." And they both kind of nodded, and Day walks off, and Josh says, "Coach, this is nothing like San Diego State." So he's been thrown in this. He's responded well. And if he continues to respond, then Ohio State's got something. I just think, there's still the concern coming into this season was offensive line, and you're still playing. If we want to look at the concern again, you're playing at left tackle, a guy who's never played there, was at San Diego State last year. Your center is a redshirt freshman who he may have played in a game or two, but never played a meaningful snap at Ohio State. The backup and the guy challenging him was a left tackle at Louisiana Monroe this year and has played about 5 games as center in his past, has started about 4 or 5 games as center in his past. And then at right tackle, Josh Fryer, who everybody loves, but is being pushed by a true freshman. So everything sounds good, but if you look at each of these individual 3 things in a vacuum, there's some concern there. But this is college football, and the job of the coaches is to bring all of this together on an annual basis. No matter what kind of hand you are dealt, you've got to put something out there.
So even though they're most likely set with the starting 5 and comfortable with that 5, I've never seen any studies on this. Here's another stat for you, Tony. Would love to come up with the average number of starting, let's say, out of not just starters, but starting games lost in a typical offensive line year in college football. What is that number? It's probably got to be 1 to 2 guys missing, 4 to, then you got the guys that missed the season, of course. I got to think, we're talking 10 or 15 starts typically are lost along an offensive line that stays relatively healthy. So what's the comfort level of the 6th, the 7th, the 8th guys against a good opponent?
I think they're comfortable with their depth, and you're asking that, and I've got that information somewhere because I don't know if it's on a spreadsheet or in a notebook, because I went through this summer and was looking at the number of starters lost to compare, because everybody said last year more starters were lost, more starter games were lost than ever before. And so I went back and in recent past, yes, like you look back to 2014, 13, 15, when Ohio State was doing absolutely well, they didn't lose any starters in terms of the offensive line. Like same offensive lineman year after year. So there's a correlation there when, especially up front on the offensive line. There have been some years, and 2014 may have been one of them, where like the number of starters lost was minuscule, and boy, national championship. So, but you have to expect to lose some guys, and that's why they want 8 guys. They want a backup tackle, a backup guard, and a backup center, but they also have a swing guy like Tegra Shabola who can play guard or tackle. Josh Fryer could move to a guard if they're more comfortable with Fryer at guard and Shabola at tackle. So they've got some pieces they can move around. And of course, Vic Cutler could essentially play any of the interior spots. And this is a guy who was a tackle last year. So they've got some depth that they like. They also have some versatility, and of course, Enoch Famahi may be the sixth man, and he's played everywhere. I think except for center, in terms of practicing as an Ohio State Buckeye. And you still have Matt Jones, who has snapped in practice as well, and so they've got the ability to move guys around. So I think they're comfortable with the depth, and they're comfortable with the versatility.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Tony had said there in terms of where they are with their sixth and seventh guy. I mean, ultimately, I think everybody would love to sit there and see two full lines. And I certainly remember a day and an age where Ohio State would roll out its second offensive line in like the second quarter of a game just to do it. And I don't think you necessarily need to be 10 deep. I mean, that would be great, but who is your six, who is your seven, who is your eight, and are you able to cover all those positions? And not to reiterate everything that Tony said, do you have somebody that's capable of snapping the ball? Yes, you have Matt Jones. You certainly have Vic Cutler. Jacob James is in the mix. Who do you have that can sit there and play guard? I mean, obviously you have Enoch Famahi. What's your situation at tackle? Who do you have in terms of depth there? I mean, you got a young guy in Luke Montgomery. I mean, Zen Mahalski was certainly in the mix. Tegra Shabola. So I feel that with all of these names there, you are able to sit there and maybe check off 6, 7, and 8 and be like, okay, maybe it might not be as smooth as 1 through 5, but there certainly is a foundation to be able to go off of. And I mean, I only have to go back as far as 2020 when Ohio State played Michigan State and had a bunch of guys out with COVID. They were able to roll guys out there and played very well. So that's really the key, in my opinion.